Welcome back to a masterclass in writing a novel. We're focused on you beginning your novel with chapter 1, and this is so your story can be told. Before we begin, let us warm up with a little back cover copy, which is what we've been doing in the other masterclass sessions. And we'll start with a back cover story example and see how this works, and then examine it again as a writer. Okay, we're trying to switch out of our mode as reader and switch into writer to examine what we like, what feels right. And then we will rewrite it, maybe once, maybe twice, and see if we can come up with something that feels a little better than what we started with. After losing his wife and son in an accident, James Moore retreats from life to his ranch in the San Diego mountains. A job offer on an ocean-going science vessel restarts his scientific career until Brainwave Corporation leases the vessel to isolate their dream degree technology that can access the brain during sleep to upload a desired curriculum in a fraction of the time. But early testing has gone terribly wrong. James's aunts direct the powerful collective organization, and they dispatch Marianne when they are made aware James is being hunted. James and Marianne fall in love, but they are forced to fix Brainwave's failure when the aunts are abducted. With few options open to them, they must overcome what appears to be insurmountable odds in order to save his aunts and themselves. This back cover copy hints at a technology thriller adventure with emotional depth and espionage. There's loss, secret organizations, and experimental technology. The mention of early tests going wrong, abductions, and being hunted adds a solid sense of danger and urgency. The plot is outlined in a mostly logical sequence that builds from personal loss to global stakes. Now, that being said, let us take a look at areas of improvement. Some sentences are a bit too compressed. For example, the job offer on an ocean-going science vessel restarts his scientific career until Brainwave Corporation leases the vessel to isolate their dream degree. This tries to do too much, it appears, in one sentence. And we should think about breaking that up, I think, for clarity. The tone feels slightly flat and a bit mechanical in places. We should try injecting more emotional resonance or intrigue. James and Marianne fall in love. It feels like a placeholder, an outline piece that needs to be written. Maybe we should hint at more depth or the stakes involved in their relationship. Fix Brainwave's failure feels a bit abstract. What kind of failure is it? Is it dangerous? Is it deadly? Is it illegal? It introduces James, his aunts, and Marianne, but we don't get much of their inner drive, motivation, agency. Why does James accept the job? Who are the aunts really, and what is the collective? Why are James and Marianne uniquely suited to fixing this problem? So let's do a rewrite. After the tragic loss of his wife and son, Scientist James Moore retreats to a solitary life on a mountain ranch in San Diego. When an opportunity arises to join a research expedition aboard an ocean-going vessel, James cautiously returns to the world of science. But the ship is soon leased by Brainwave Corporation, a secretive tech giant developing the Dream Degree, a radical sleep-based learning program designed to upload knowledge directly into the brain. Early trials, however, have gone dangerously wrong. When James becomes a target, his aunts, leaders of the shadowy collective, send Marianne, a skilled operative, to protect him. As their bond deepens, a darker threat emerges. The aunts are abducted, and Brainwave's experiment may be spiraling into catastrophe. With time running out and the odds stacked against them, James and Marianne must unlock the truth behind the Dream Degree before it destroys everything and everyone they love. A little better, there's rising tension. The 3-act progression is now clear. Personal loss, return to science, and then a new threat. Action-driven rescue mission and romantic tension are evident here. Each paragraph escalates the stakes appropriately. There's a compelling sci-fi element with the Dream Degree. It's intriguing, well explained, just enough detail to interest the reader without bogging them down with copy. There are good character dynamics. The inclusion of the collective, Marianne, provides texture and hints at a wider world. A romance subplot is introduced without overshadowing the main plot. We could bring in a bit more urgency or specificity in a couple of places. The sentence rhythm could use some minor tightening, shorter and maybe more active. So let's rewrite with some tweaks to streamline and punch it up slightly. After the tragic loss of his wife and son, scientist James Moore retreats to a solitary life on a remote ranch in the San Diego mountains. But when he's invited to join a research expedition aboard an ocean-going vessel, James reluctantly returns to science. The ship is soon leased to Brainwave Corporation, a shadowy tech giant testing the Dream Degree, a radical program that uploads knowledge into the brain during sleep. But something has gone terribly wrong. When James becomes a target, his powerful aunts, leaders of the secret collective, send Marianne, a skilled operative, to protect him. As danger closes in and their connection deepens, a darker threat emerges. The aunts are abducted, and Brainwave's technology may be spiraling out of control. Now, James and Marianne must uncover the truth behind the Dream Degree before it destroys his family and everything they care about. This seems good for the moment. Let's leave it here. It's always a work in progress. You may be struggling with how to start. If you look at authors and some of your favorites, take a look at the beginnings of chapters and look at their techniques. You could start with the weather, for example, to set the mood and foreshadow events. And remember, it cannot be a lone item. It must tie back to the character, the mood, the theme. You could start with action, drop your reader into something happening right now. You could start with dialogue, jump into a conversation, especially if it raises a question or conflict. You could start with a character's thought to give us internal tension or insight. You could start with a vivid image, a sensory detail, open with something strange or beautiful or unsettling. Start in the middle of a scene, no preamble, just drop the reader into something happening. Start with a mysterious or bold statement, say something intriguing, unsettling, dramatic. Start with a memory or a flashback, reveal something from the past that shapes the present. Start with a conflict or an argument, tension between characters pulls the reader in. Start with a question, either asked by the narrator or implied by the scene. This question could be explicit, clear, or implicit, implied. Start with a change. Begin with something just shifted or about to change. Let us now look at chapter 1, an example. This chapter is a prologue, so it actually describes a scene that occurs further along in the story sequence. It is done here at the front end because it achieves 4 main goals. It sets the stage for the main story, introduces a key event, introduces the principal character, and sets the theme. So once this chapter is complete, chapter 2 will begin with a sentence, a line that reads 2 months earlier, and we will go back to the beginning of the story sequence and follow our protagonist through that sequence to catch up to the event when it occurs and what happened to put the protagonist in this position in the first place. What forces must have been at play to shape the Adirondack Mountains into a dome rather than an elongated range 5 million years ago? Ancient rocks 1,000 million years old were used to create this circle that was 160 miles wide and 1 mile high, which accounts for why the Adirondacks, natural enceinte, is described as new mountains from old rocks. Cumulonimbus clouds hovered over the mountains as if attached, and unlike their cumulus cousin that foretold fair weather, upper-level winds sheared the tops of these clouds to shape them like an anvil. Forecasting, the mountain's blacksmith would soon be at work hammering the area with a maelstrom of thunder, lightning, hail, and high winds. Nathan, layering a jacket over a simple t-shirt and jeans, pointed out the window of the Learjet as it banked to a 20-acre parcel below. On the surface, it's a rather basic Lake Saranac mountain getaway home. Nothing special, about 2,000 square feet, I believe. His fellow passenger, Eric, who was casual today in dark pants, a button-down collar shirt and blazer, looked down at the lodge with its wraparound porch flanked by a long airplane runway strip leading to a hangar. But below the hardwood floors of this home is an 8,000 square foot Cold War missile silo built in 1961. Even if it received a direct nuclear attack from a Soviet first strike, or if it was attacked by ground forces, the personnel were protected and therefore able to launch their Atlas intercontinental ballistic missile. They called this deterrent MAD, Mutual Assured Destruction, but it worked. Eric took another look. How interesting. You would never know from up here. NG is on site, full-time now, with a large security detail guarding them. They are locked away in what his girlfriend called an oubliette. I had to look it up. It means a secret dungeon that only has access through a trapdoor in the ceiling. She's French, you know. I didn't know that. He has his lab, and they've hired a lot of new personnel, closely vetted by us, of course. It couldn't be better. He's trapped in an underground industrial complex with unrivaled security. Do not underestimate him, Nathan. We locked him away once before, also in an oubliette by coincidence, and he worked his way out. He is irritatingly inventive, and this girlfriend sounds just as annoying. I understand, but the aunts make this work. Even if he gets out, he has no idea where we are holding them, and this forces him to comply. It's just like MAD. This is why I'm nervous, and when you think you have him, that's when he'll surprise you. Not this time. Eric shrugged. Stay vigilant. Strong opening in several ways, vivid sense of a setting, an air of conspiracy here, which builds intrigue. The poetic and philosophical tone is engaging, opens with this grandeur and a bit of geographical awe. It helps frame the chapter's setting as ancient, powerful, and possibly symbolic. The imagery of the blacksmith hammering the storms into the area is particularly strong. It's a good metaphor with stylistic flair. Nathan and Eric mid-flight giving us exposition. Good dialogue while they observe the property below. The missile silo adds a layer of high-stakes intrigue. This is where the story starts to come alive here. A hint of a deep backstory here, Cold War technology. We've got imprisonment, escape possibly, creating immediate narrative tension. There's a subtle power dynamic in the exchange between Eric and Nathan. Eric is more cautious, while Nathan is overconfident. And this contrast works well. Great high concept world building going on here. An underground lab. We've got shadowy organizations, enforced compliance with psychological tactics. New mountain from old rocks. This echoes well, right? With the missile silo beneath an ordinary lodge. Okay, there's thematic unity here. So let's now go through the second half of this chapter. They touched down, disembarked, and entered the house. Guards led them down a 125-foot stairwell to a floor and walls made of 3-inch thick concrete, reinforced with embedded steel mesh. The original equipment was there: control panels, monochrome, monitors, clocks displaying time zones for 3 continents, and the hazard symbol for radiation everywhere. Nathan pointed to the equipment as they passed. Funny to think my smartwatch has more computing power than the whole room's equipment combined. Down to another level with suites, a gym, swimming pool, jacuzzi, sauna, and a dining area, all fully staffed. As they continued beyond these two levels, they passed through another security checkpoint and then entered a set of 2,000-pound blast doors to a 70-foot tunnel giving access to the actual missile silo, a 9-level cylindrical structure measuring 50 feet in diameter and 185 feet below the surface. Yet another security checkpoint, and out emerged NG, who showed them into a conference room. She was wearing a grey blazer over a plain button-up shirt with boot-cut jeans and canvas sneakers. Eric refused refreshments, wanting to press on. Give me an update, NG, if you will. Beyond these security doors is a 3,000 square foot lab, fully equipped. Their names are James Moore and Marianne Dufay, but I forget you know them. I know him, but not her. They have a team of 6 scientists and 6 support staff. Moore has hit milestones, and he has only asked twice to speak to his aunts. Nathan interrupted. I have received 4 updates. They come out with this huge trolley loaded with laptops and equipment, and you think this will be good, and then it just trails off to nothing. So, you have no idea how close they are? NG looked thoughtful. No, our embedded spies believe they have now worked out how to fix it. But I don't trust Moore, and I especially don't trust Dufay. Eric leaned forward to rest on the table. Have they tried to escape? No, and that keeps me on high alert. Good, NG. Stay that way. Now let's get this over with. Can you show them in? And while they're here, I want the 2 of you to go to the lab and ask questions. Let's try and find out as much as we can. Nathan shook his head. I hope you can get an answer. We need it. They're a couple of weirdos, if you ask me, bringing all that shit along and then saying nothing helpful. James and Marianne were escorted into the conference room wearing medical coveralls, pushing their laden trolley, and found Eric sitting alone. It was clear by James's change in demeanor there was ill feeling. Marianne, this is Eric Banner. Eric waited until they were seated opposite, his expression just as cold. Let me get straight to the point. You need to fix this and fix it soon. If you don't give me a concise account of the project's status, I will flip a coin and decide which of your aunts is first tortured and then killed. This section has sharper dialogue, a clearer power structure, and the introduction of emotional stakes that escalate the conflict. The slow descent into the facility, physically and narratively, is effective. It gives a deepening the rabbit hole vibe. And a sense of increasing control and isolation is quite palpable here. The detailed layout of the underground complex helps the reader visualize the space. A good example of embedded world building. References to Cold War relics, radiation symbols, retro control panels contrast nicely with modern spycraft and covert labs. Eric steps forward here as the clear antagonist, cold, powerful, and dangerous. Nathan is less intimidating, but clearly aligned with Eric, though his grumbling shows he's more emotional and reactive. NG has a watchful, slightly paranoid tone. a believable sort of middle management feel, an enforcer who respects the threat but maybe doesn't fully grasp it all at this stage. James and Marianne are mostly silent here, but the ill feeling James shows adds depth without dialogue. It has a cinematic pacing in the way the facility is described in layers, feeling like a slow tracking shot of a film. The last two lines are strong, they're brutal. It sets Eric up as extremely dangerous, and it makes the stakes very personal here for James. It tells us that this is not a negotiation, it's coercion, and there will be consequences. Take a stab at the first line of your novel. Try several versions, play with them until you find that they feel right. Being overly wordy is okay. Writing a paragraph that will eventually become a line is good, because if it captures the scene perfectly, you can always refine it at a later time. And that's what we are doing. Exactly what we did with the backstory, we are going to do with chapter 1. We are then going to refine and craft it down into the essence of what it will eventually be. Thank you for joining me today, and I do hope this video has been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Otherwise, thank you and bye for now.